Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Wardell. I want to start out by just thanking Arts Alliance for this awesome opportunity to share with y'all. I am a dancer, dance teacher, dance maker, sort of freelance hustler in the dance field, living in Chicago. I'm also the founder of a company called the Cambrians, which is probably the thing I'm doing the most nowadays. So yeah, I just want to share a little structured improv weirdy dance for y'all today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it makes you think a little bit of spring and sunshine and memories and all the good stuff. So here, let me just get my camera set up. Hopefully this angle works okay. And music.
Thinking outrageously, I read in cursive, I hide in my bed with the lights on the floor. Wearing 3 layers of coats and late warmers, I see my own breath on the face of the door. Oh, I am not quite sleeping. Oh, I am fast in bed. There on the wall in the bedroom creeping, I see a wasp with her wings outstretched. I come out wearing my brother's red hat. There on his shoulder, my best friend is bit 7 times. He runs washing his face in his hands. Oh, how I meant to tease him. Oh, how I meant no harm. Touching his back with my hand, I kiss him. I see the wasp on the length of my arm. Into the car from the backseat, oh admiration and falling asleep. All of my powers, day after day, I can tell you We swaggered and swayed deep in the tower. The prairies below. I can tell you, we're telling it's old. Terrible states, terrible storm. I can tell you, the day we were born. My friend is gone, he ran away. I can tell you, I love each day. Though we have scars, wrestled and raged. I can tell you, I love each day. Terrible states, terrible storms. I can tell you,
Isolation has not been great for my stamina. I hope you enjoyed this. Enjoy dancing in small places. You don't have to be a dancer. And again, I am Ben Wardell, founder of The Cambrians. Check us out, www.thecambrians.com. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.
I want to thank everyone for being on the webinar today. And I'm going to start us off, as we do with our webinars, providing you with a political update. This is a crisis, of course, and action and policies are changing very quickly. The policy environment is changing very quickly. And so we want to make sure that you stay up to date. And then, of course, we'll get into unemployment. And that's such a big issue that we'll keep this update brief. I'm going to share my screen, Demi, and hopefully people will be able to see this PowerPoint presentation. Let's see here. Voila. Can you actually see the PowerPoint presentation? I accomplished something today. Okay. May 14. It's easy to forget what day it is when you're in stay-at-home order, but it is May 14. Want to call attention to a couple things. Conversations are beginning to be had about reopening. The governor gave us 5 phases of reopening in different parts of the state. And for more information on that, you can go to our Facebook group. And maybe, Demi, you could drop a link in there if someone's interested. Our sector is beginning to be involved in discussions about how reopening will occur. For example, Arts Alliance Illinois, through our executive director, Claire Rice, is chairing a group in Chicago tasked by the mayor to look at the reopening of arts, culture, and actually they've even put religion and recreation and sports in there as well. So those conversations continue. PUA, which is the unemployment benefits system, the new system for independent contractors and self-employed people, gig workers, that is now operational, and it went into effect and opened up on May 11, and we'll be talking more about that later. One big issue, and hopefully a resource for many of you, has been the Paycheck Protection Program loans offered by the Small Business Administration. One thing I want to let everyone know about is that yesterday, the federal government issued an opinion, and they issue these opinions through FAQs that provide specific situations. But the federal government issued an opinion yesterday that said, if your loan amount is under $2 million, then the requirement to show financial hardship because of COVID is deemed automatically met. So that was involving a lot of paperwork for many people, but if your loan is under $2 million, they will assume that you meet that financial hardship. There's approximately $120 billion remaining in the PPP fund. The burn rate has, I believe, been a little bit lower than before. That's still not a lot of money based on the need, but there is some indication that some people have kind of, or a portion of the sector has pulled back and not applied because of some of the problems. So there is money remaining if you believe that you're eligible, and look at our fact sheet that we've put up on our Facebook site. We still continue to urge you to apply. But we also have to realize that more relief is needed. This is such a large issue and the needs are so large that Congress has turned to the next round of discussions. As you know, we've already had 3, or some people would say 3.5 rounds of relief. Discussions are coming up for what form will the next round of relief take place. This is a longer conversation that Congress needs to have. As a first step, Speaker Pelosi announced the House Democrats' plan. It's called, as most bills are, involve acronyms, it's called the HEROES Act. As we get to each subsequent round of relief, we're seeing increasing amounts of partisanship. And so the Senate Republicans have basically indicated that they view the proposed HEROES Act as a kind of almost dead on arrival proposal. I think it's not quite dead on arrival, but Republicans are writing their own bill. And one of the things that they're focusing on is immunity for businesses that might be sued due to the COVID situation and liability, limiting liability. That is going to continue to be a tug back and forth until they can work that out. There is pressure, though, for them to get something done because they are hearing from constituents that the relief given so far is not enough. So very quickly, I want to look at some of the key provisions in the HEROES Act because they do give a little bit of a forecast about what negotiations will look like. So in this is an 1,800-page bill, I believe. We have a proposed second round of economic impact payments proposed at $1,200 per member of a family. For the PPP loan program, the Democrats are proposing that the term be extended from 2 years to 5 years. And importantly, that they would actually eliminate the 75-25 rule for forgiveness. And for those of you who have gone through the process, you know that 75% has to go towards payroll, 25% cap then on other costs in order to be forgiven. The Democrats propose wiping that away. They also propose set-asides, and this is something that we as an organization have wanted to see. Their set-aside would be 25% of the remaining funds would be designated for nonprofit organizations. Now, the key there is existing funds, and by the time this bill, a negotiated bill, is passed, we're not sure how much money there will be. And then with respect to unemployment, which kind of brings us to our topic today, the Democrats in the House are proposing that weekly $600, which is federally funded, that be extended beyond July. So these are some of the issues that you're going to hear about in the news being talked about. And we will continue to keep you updated on these things on a regular basis. And heck, if you want to talk politics, my office hours are tomorrow. So you don't just have to have a unemployment question. You can also call just to talk politics if you want to. But that is where we're at. And there are so many questions around unemployment that, Chris, I'm going to throw it back to you. I'm going to throw it to you to get us started on some Q&A on unemployment. And Chris Audane is with the Alphawood Foundation. He's also an individual artist and has been kind enough to help us moderate these discussions over the last, is it few months? I think it might be. Who knows? So Chris, I'm gonna hand it over to you to introduce our experts from IDES and get us started on Q&A.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. We've got Eric Conjus, who's been with us before, and he manages the adjudication program for the Unemployment Insurance Support Division of Illinois Department of Employment Security, IDES. He's been with the agency for 15 years, and he's going to answer these questions to the best of his ability. Today, he's joined by John Ferry, who's a statewide program manager, and who can help answer any specific questions about the PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance questions. And thanks, guys, for being here. The first question is about residuals, an issue we've brought up before. Residuals, an example would be an actor's royalties from reruns of a commercial. And we thought it'd be helpful to revisit the question of residuals. Last time you mentioned that the residuals do not have to be reported when certifying. Some of our sector members receive the residuals, however, as part of W-2 income through an entity such as a union. In this situation, Should they report the residual? And if so, how should they report it?
Oh, good afternoon. First of all, thanks for having us back. Happy to be here, Jonathan, and all of you guys. Thanks for putting this out so we have an opportunity to get some actual information out to people. So with regard to residuals are only reported when the services are performed. So if you did a commercial, just say you did a commercial in April of 2019, or you were in a television show or something like that in April of 2019, while you may use those wages or residuals, okay, let me get the example quite right. So if you did the commercial in April of 2019, you may use those wages to qualify you for benefits for that benefit year. However, and you're paid a residual, they re-air the show or the commercial or something now. That re-airing of the show, it would not, the earnings from that would not be reported now. It would not be disqualifying now.
So Eric,
the
just
important thing to note is it's when they are actually earned.
Correct, exactly.
does it make a, just as a follow-up, John or Eric, does it make a difference though if it's reported on the W-2? Is that something that's going to get someone in trouble, so to speak, because it's included in a W-2?
No, not at all. It's supposed to be included. It is considered wages. It's earnings for services performed.
Okay, so they would do the calculation then and take that out in what they would report or certify? Or...
No, so we're talking about two different things. So
okay. Yeah.
As far as qualifying an individual for unemployment benefits, that base period wages, and right now we would be looking at 2019, and particularly when we're talking about PUA, we're looking at just 2019. Okay. So, you know, the services were performed in 2019, therefore they can be used to establish monetary eligibility for both regular unemployment and pandemic unemployment assistance.
Okay.
If they get a check now based off of that service that was performed in 2019, then it is not disqualifying now on their weekly or bi-weekly certifications.
Okay, okay, good.
So we're really talking about two different things. We're talking about wages and income. Wages, you perform the service and we're paid for it. Income can be the royalties, stock payouts, anything like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's such an important issue for our sector, of course, because we do have royalties. And so this has been one of the biggest questions, people who get that on a W-2, just wanting to know what to do on the application side and then what to do on the certification side. So, and if anyone has any follow-ups to that, because it is such a big issue, feel free to put it in Q&A, and Demi, maybe you can kind of to watch for that. I did want to transition to a second kind of question, and along with the residuals question, this has been the biggest situation that we've heard about, and that is that many workers in the creative sector don't just fit W-2 and don't just fit 1099. They have some type of mixed income, some W-2 income, some 1099 income. And so they've applied for regular unemployment and they've applied for PUA as instructed. But what they're finding is that the small amount of W-2 income that they have, a minority amount of their income, puts them into regular unemployment. And then they receive a very low finding, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the accuracy of what they earn. And so that's just a concern that we're hearing. Maybe you could help us think through that in terms of why is that? What is it about the system that's causing that? And what should someone do in that situation? What can be done?
Gotcha. So and let's start with why that happens, okay? So pandemic unemployment assistance, just like disaster unemployment assistance on which that program is based, has a minimum. And maybe John can explain what that minimum, where they come up with that number, but it does have a minimum which is higher than the minimum for regular unemployment benefits, okay? We are not permitted to choose to put someone on pandemic unemployment assistance if they are otherwise eligible for regular unemployment assistance. We have to start with that program. So an individual, let's just say an individual who is eligible for the current minimum under regular unemployment is $51 a week. And we can see that they're eligible for regular unemployment. We're required to start them on regular unemployment.
That's under the federal law, the CARES Act? Or
John?
Yes, it is part of the CARES Act.
it is, okay.
And we have a few questions that we have submitted to DOL to clarify the finer points of this. So I don't want to go into too much detail right now, but as it currently stands, it's if you are receiving UI or eligible to receive UI, you have to draw that before any PUA benefits are even considered. You're not even able to file because you have a valid UI claim at this time.
And then, because I think, again, we would really urge that, I mean, it's such a pressing, devastating issue for our sector that we would urge the state to do whatever they can to move that, even as we advocate for changes at the federal level. It's whatever can be done for that, I think, is vital to our sector. It is incredibly important.
And we totally understand that there are a lot of people that, I mean, this is big legislation. They didn't think about the finer points such as this. So we're trying to get DOL to give us interpretations that we can work with down the road. But currently, we just have to go with what's written in the legislation. And that's what it is.
Okay. So I'm going to throw it back to you, and we can we'll go back and forth, Chris, but I'm going to throw it back to you for the question. Or no, actually, as I'm going to jump in, can I jump in on the next one too, Chris?
Yeah, go for it.
Because it's PPP, and I know, Eric, you and I have talked about this before a little bit because it's a really complex situation, but can someone receive a PPP loan in case of self-employed and unemployment at the same time? I know that's been a kind of a bigger question than just the creative sector.
Right. So, I mean, I get that some of these can be quite confusing. So we checked with our Office of Legal Counsel just to make sure that as a policy standpoint, we were applying this the correct way. And the consensus we've landed on is an individual, to say a business owner receives a PPP loan to continue to pay their staff. And they do just that. They get the money and pay their staff the wages. For the staff that receive the wages now, because now they are wages, they would actually, that would be disqualifying for them. If the business owner uses those funds to replace any part or all of his own salary, that would be disqualifying. If he does not, then it would not be disqualifying.
Okay. So, because I know part of it is it's often a balance between the two systems, where self-employed has kind of a foot in the unemployment system and a foot in the business world as well. So we're hearing a lot of finding out how to straddle those and get the most accurate benefits in terms of what the person needs to keep going. But do you have any just general advice on someone who's looking at a PPP and unemployment?
I probably wouldn't go so far as to advise on, do it this way. Everybody's situation is going to be different, and their own personal circumstances are going to come into play as to, whether or not they take, use those funds to pay staff or themselves. So my suggestion, if any, would just make the best choice for yourself in the situation, and just know that it could have an impact on, on whether or not you receive unemployment benefits, how you pay that. So again, if you're gonna pay yourself something out of this loan, I think just the best advice I could give is being honest about how you're applying that when you're claiming unemployment benefits. If you are unsure, then, in your particular situation, we have our call centers or, different outlets that you can, our call center is our primary outlet for reaching out for questions for something like that. And we'll try to assist on a case-by-case basis.
We do have some instances, and we've kind of about this approach through Lawyers for the Creative Arts and stuff too. Is we do have some instances where we hear people actually applying for a PPP loan, exhausting that, and then applying for unemployment. We're not necessarily saying that's the way people need to go, but there have been some people who've looked at the math and decided that way. But it's kind of an individualized decision, right, Eric, when they look at the route they want to take.
Absolutely. I mean, and certainly that's a route to go. If you have any questions or, you don't want to, step on any landmines, then, that's certainly an option, but everybody's situation is going to be different.
Yep. Okay. I'll throw it back to you, Chris.
Yeah, I got some follow-up questions coming through on residuals, and I think it's an issue a lot of folks are having some trouble with. So let's see if we can maybe get some clarity. I think the understanding is that residuals is not disqualifying income for benefits. The question is, does it need to be included when certifying for benefits? Someone says, if we do not report it, won't we be flagged as deceitful or fraudulent?
No. It does not need to be reported. If it's a residual for services performed outside of that particular week that you're claiming, then it does not need to be reported and it would not be considered fraud.
Okay. And then another question, and Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Go for it. Keep rolling.
Okay. This is about green card holder. For someone who holds a green card and has a social security number, but who is not a citizen, will the online system work for them? People are experiencing some difficulty with this. Is there any advice? Is there a translator on the call that can help?
Is there a translator on this call?
No, I mean, if they were trying to call in, is that an option?
We do have the ability to get translators on our calls. So we do have also a lot of bilingual staff in both our call centers and across the state. If your particular language is not spoken by one of our staff, then we can get a translator on the call. With regard to whether or not an individual is eligible, can apply for benefits if they have a valid Social Security number and are currently authorized to work in the United States and have qualifying wages for unemployment benefits, the answer is yes. The system shouldn't have any problems getting that process through. I know volume has kind of created some situations. John, are you aware of any issues with either system allowing people in this population to file claims?
None that I'm aware of.
All right, so generally speaking, I mean, we do get complaints on various problems. If that's a problem that you're experiencing, then I can, escalate that up through the chain to have someone look at and just make sure there are no problems with that interface. But as just a basic, can you apply? Would you be eligible and you meet the other eligibility requirements? The answer is yes.
We had this question that was actually pre-submitted, and I've actually heard it from two people, and it's what income amount, especially if it relates to using a 1040C, should we put? Should we enter our full income before write-offs, which is line 7 of 1040C, gross income, or should they put adjusted income after write-offs?
So for the PUA system, we use the net income. And when you're going through the application, it does tell you to use the net income. And I believe it says the line number that they want, but I'm not 100% positive on that.
Okay. So net, not gross.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Okay, if you are receiving unemployment, do you have to report grants received as income?
I'm going to say no. Grants for that are not related to the PPP or anything like that. It's not wages. It's benefit from some organization, you meet some criteria, no, we wouldn't consider that for services in employment.
Okay, maybe just for clarity, so a grant would be, there's sometimes individual artist grants, and they would be, sometimes they're recognition of past work you've done, sometimes they're for a project you may do in the future. And so it, you know, kind of can vary, but I think the payment is generally the same. They're often from foundations. Does that change the answer at all?
Actually, it complicates the answer. It's going to be tied to whether or not it's directly for services in employment, you know, for performed services. Excuse me. So I think that's going to have to be one. If you could, for the person who asked that question, if you could provide some specific scenarios and we could table that perhaps, and I can research some rules and policies and get back to that question.
Thanks.
And we can, and Demi, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can, as we've been doing kind of all along, follow up with some of the answers to these as we get more information, right? And maybe you want to say a little bit about how we can relay those follow-up answers that we get.
For me, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in the Q&A. If you just comment on your question, if you want to add context, if we don't get to it in the webinar, then just email us at info@artsalliance.org and we'll follow up with you and send whatever's appropriate to Eric.
Thanks, Demi. I'm wondering if Eric or John, we have a lot of people that we've talked to that are kind of trying to figure out timeframes, both in planning and what is retroactive or what's not retroactive. So I'm wondering if we could do a little lightning round, so to speak, and find out which benefits are retroactive and to when. So for example, regular unemployment, this is not counting the extra $600 or so, but regular employment, when do those benefits start? Is that retroactive? Do they start when you file? When do those benefits start for regular unemployment?
John, do you want to take these or?
I mean, I can. So generally it's going to be the week in which you file, you're going to put your last day work, but when you do that, the date that you file a claim, the Sunday date of when you file a claim is going to establish your benefit year. You can apply to have that claim backdated.
Okay. Now, go ahead.
No, go.
So you can apply to have it backdated. Is that the same with PUA? Is PUA retroactive?
PUA, when you file the claim, you actually have the opportunity to backdate the claim during the claims filing process.
Okay, and is that till March 29, or is it further back?
It's
it's
actually, I have it in front of me, John.
thank you. I was looking at the calendar.
It's actually applicable as of February 2nd. So
okay.
We know that the system just went up this week. So individuals may elect to backdate as far back as that.
Okay, so people should be aware of that when they go on to apply. But if they're moved to regular employment, does that retroactivity apply to regular unemployment as well?
No.
And then the $600 a week, people should also realize that part of the CARES package was a federally funded increase in benefits of $600 per week. Is that retroactive?
That would be retroactive to when that became available. And I want to say that was the last week of March.
Okay.
That's the March 29th date. Yeah.
That's the March 29th date. Okay, good. I know that some people have applied at different paces and different levels, so we wanted to make sure we understand like when things start and how long they go.
So if I'm filing a PUA claim all the way back to February 2nd, I'm going to have the period between February 2nd and March 29th where I'm only receiving my PUA weekly benefit amount. And then the weeks I certify after that, I may be eligible for my weekly benefit amount and the $600.
Okay, so there's a period of time where you might get the benefit, but not the $600.
Correct.
And the $600 that currently goes until July 25. Is that right?
The $600?
Yeah.
Currently, yes, to the last full payable week of July.
Okay.
And correct, yes.
And we've had people ask the question too. The $600 applies to PUA as well as regular benefits, right?
Correct.
All benefits, yes.
I'll hand it back to you, Chris. Tag, you're it.
Okay. This is a question about just trying to talk to people on the call center. I think there's certainly a capacity issue, but if people are, trying to call, they can't get a hold of anyone. Are there any other ways to get specific help? Is there an email center or anything like that available?
No, so currently we don't have any email center or anything like that. We have recently in the last several weeks included a chat window on our website that will assist a user to, navigating, finding information on our website a little bit better. We've extended hours at our call center and added staff and are looking at adding more, if I'm not mistaken right now, to help us with the increased load. So we know that physically our local offices are closed to the public, so then right now the call center is going to be our main point of contact. Am I correct with that, John? Can you think of other sources for?
You're correct, and really what it is our call center is just slammed with calls right now, especially with us freshly opening up PUA and everything else. My best advice is call during off-peak hours. That's about the only advice I can give you right now. We have expanded our capacity for lines, but as soon as we open up more lines, they're packed instantly, if that makes sense.
We also have a question here from someone, again, who has split income between W-2 and 1099. They ask, what should we put for the reason for no work on W-2s for contract jobs? This person did a Broadway and Chicago show from May to August last year, but the system is only giving them the options for laid off, fired, still working part-time, etc. They also receive W-2s for adjunct teaching.
That would be, if anytime there is no work available, we consider that laid off or lack of work.
This is, I'm trying to break this question down, but I can't, so I'm just gonna read it. I'm a freelancer who primarily gets 1099 work. I was told to wait to apply till May for PUA, but then they made us apply to UI first to get denied. This person had 3 clients that made them use payroll. So they had 6 days of W-2 work, and that's what made them get approved for UI with no back pay for the 2 months they were told to wait. Most freelancers are having this issue. Is there a way to get funds based on their full income? They've attempted to upload their 1099s, but haven't heard anything yet. Any insight would be helpful.
That's an interesting situation. I don't want to make any policy statements on the fly. So if we can table that one, and I can take it back and we can discuss what kind of advice to give in that sort of situation.
Yeah, ultimately it's for W-2 and 1099 workers who are inaccurately approved for UI. Is there a way to get a proper wage based on the full income? But yeah.
So and that's the kind of thing that we're working with DOL on currently, to get interpretations based off of what we've seen.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, again, that's a situation that's hitting hard, and we're seeing that by the number of questions, particularly for our sector, and it's viewed as simply, it's not fair. And it's not fair to people who are in the situation where they have that mixed type of income. And it's something that Arts Alliance will advocate for, particularly at the federal level, which is where that policy was set. And as these discussions for next relief comes, we're going to push on that hard. So people should stay alert early next week for some action items so that we can begin to get this situation corrected, so that these kind of unfair situations aren't denying benefits that should be given.
Yeah, and what are off-peak hours? What are the best times, or maybe suggested times? 3 people have asked that follow-up question.
At this point in time, I don't know that there are any necessarily, quote, off-peak hours. That's our general, what we recommend. I would say, didn't we, Eric, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't we start opening up the lines at 7, I believe?
I believe it's from 7 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. Now, I'll clarify that in just a sec while we're on the call. So I would just say as early as possible. I'm sure those queues start filling up probably even before we open. And, you know, perhaps later in the evening, but, you know, I doubt that can be true in all cases and depending on the day. So certainly Mondays are, you know, earlier in the week are harder than, you know, some later in the week. But whenever you try, it may be difficult. So our advice is to, you know, try back often and
we're constantly improving our capabilities, trying to get more phone calls answered. It's a process.
Some of the questions that we're getting in are longer questions. So Eric and John, if you don't mind, if we simply read them, they're more detailed, but I think the situations that they're presenting are not unique in many ways, and people are running into similar situations. One of the questions that we have, and again, I'll read it, is I filed for regular UI and was found ineligible. My benefit was 0. I had 2 jobs in 2019 that generated W-2s, but those were already included in documentation for the UI that was denied. When I tried to sign up for the PUA program, the IDES website posted these messages. 1, you already have a regular UI claim that still has benefits. 2, it posted 1 or more employers reported paying wages to you during this time frame when assessing eligibility. And just simply, please help. They've called frequently and wondering what those messages mean and what they can do.
Right. So we probably don't do as well a job, and I'm just myself here on this call, differentiating the word deny, right? Or you may be denied for a monetary reason, that is, you didn't make enough money to qualify for regular unemployment benefits, and you may be denied on a different sort of eligibility reason. You weren't able for work, or you were fired for misconduct, or you quit for reasons not attributable to the employer for some prior period. One of those situations may apply, and I don't know, based off what you read, I can't really discern for what reason that individual was denied, and that may be why if you're monetarily eligible for the regular unemployment and not eligible, and it's not for one of the COVID-19 related reasons that are enumerated under PUA, it may block you. But I'm gonna ask John to go a little bit more in depth about those reasons.
Yeah. Just another piece of information, in the same situation, the person said they received a benefit payment explanation letter stating that they were due for $0 and a UI finding letter stating they were ineligible, due $0, but they still couldn't sign up for PUA. They was told to call. And we have some who checked up on this.
My best advice for that is if you guys could send either Eric or myself the claimant ID number, we can look into it. This was a computer system that we, as our trainer said, we were flying the airplane while we were trying to build it.
Mhm.
And we're still working out bugs daily. I know, Eric, I don't know how much time you've been able to get into the new system. We're still clarifying and working on bugs. So if you can get the claimant ID and send it to us, we can definitely look into it and try to fix any problems that may be happening.
All right.
Thank you.
I understand we must apply through the traditional unemployment application and be denied in order to be eligible for PUA. In that traditional application, it asks for employers. Should I list my 1099 payers as employers? Later in the application, it asks for any independent contract work done since 2019. And in the questionnaire, it asks for employers or 1099 payers employers.
So we know that some employers, some situations are actually employment, where an actual employer is misclassifying workers for various reasons, lack of knowledge, whatever the case may be, as they're misclassifying people as independent contractors. However, there are a population of people you know that you are in fact an independent contractor. You own a independently established business or trade, and this is a contract situation. So I would say, if you're unsure as to whether or not it's an employer, you can list them and we can make that determination to, as whether or not to exclude them or get more information or whatever the case may be for those individuals. But if you know that you are in fact independently established, then it probably is not necessary for you to add that to your regular UI claim. And we're just talking about a regular UI claim. PUA, they're asking for pretty much all of your. Are they asking for, again, we're flying the plane and building it, so bear with us. Are we asking for a full list of employers in the PUA system, to your knowledge?
Yes, they do ask for employers, but the verification you're going to give is actually your tax return.
We have some individuals, we've run into this a number of times, that they're freelance workers. And let's say even if they only have 1099 income, and in this case here, it says all of my current income has come from clients in states outside of Illinois. They were denied regular UI. Are they eligible to apply for PUA in Illinois? So maybe you can talk a little bit about the state lines how that affects eligibility.
And you're in a very interesting one. So the regulations say that PUA should be applied for in the state in which the employment occurred. So if you're self-employed, let's say you're down in the Alton area, but you're actually doing your work in St. Louis, you would apply for PUA in Missouri because that's where you did the work. Now, my understanding from the way the question was worded is this is multiple states. I would basically just pick a state and apply for it.
All right.
Preferably a state that has a PUA system up and running.
Yeah.
All right, someone has received a PPP loan and they received it 2 weeks ago, but they also applied for unemployment. They have learned that they qualify for unemployment insurance thanks to PUA. How do they navigate this without running afoul of the law? Ideally, they'd like to keep the PPP and use the PUA for the period not covered by the PPP. On the other hand, if they need to give it back to stay eligible for PUA, how do they do that? Can they just pay it back, or do they need to pay it back?
Okay, so go ahead, Eric.
No, I defer to you. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
So the PPP, I'm no expert in that legislation, to say the least. But if it says a defined period in which you're supposed to provide wages for yourself and your employees, and you have unemployment due to COVID-19 outside of that, of what the PPP defines as the payment period, PUA would be eligible. You would be eligible to apply for PUA during the period not covered by PPP. Once you get into the period that is covered by PPP, you would have to report those wages, what you're paying yourself from the PPP as wages on your certification. Is that a fair summation there, Eric?
Yeah, I would, yes.
That sounds like a clear answer to that question. Thanks.
Yep.
We have a question that we picked up through Facebook. It says, I'm an artist who works at a restaurant. My employer just got a PPP loan and called the workers back to work to help us get paid. But this person was making more on unemployment and wants to stay safe at home. If I refuse the job, I lose UI. Are there any protections or exceptions in this case?
So generally speaking, an individual who refuses a bona fide offer to return to work must establish good cause for the refusal in order to continue to receive or to initially receive benefits. Okay. So if your employer is calling you back to work and your reason is I'm getting more on unemployment than working, that would not be considered a good reason. Consideration is given to an individual's health, his safety, work opportunities in, similar work opportunities in the area. And so an individual who has a valid concern about the safety of returning to work in some instances, they would still have to prove if the employer is taking sufficient steps to have a safe environment, particularly with with COVID and all of that going on, and the individual can't otherwise establish good cause, then they may be denied benefits for refusing.
Does that apply to, say, someone who needs to stay home due to caring for a child who doesn't have childcare due to the COVID crisis, or a parent who needs to care for a student home because the school is closed due to COVID?
So I believe that's one of the specific COVID-19 related reasons for receipt of PUA. I'm correct with that, right, John?
You are correct. You are correct.
So that's been specified as a qualifying factor for PUA.
One other thing I want to throw on to what Eric said about the original situation. Because the employer called them back to work and they're wanting to refuse it, you would also have an able and available issue there. Because currently we have some flexibility provided by the feds that redefine what able and available are. Okay. And one of them is that you are waiting for your employer to open back up. Well, in that instance, the employer would have opened back up, so we would have to see a rather robust work search to justify keeping them on unemployment. Would you agree with that, Eric?
Yeah, I would agree with that from the standpoint of, yes, we are not able to do away with the able and available requirements unless, and this is specifically covered under the CARES Act, an individual's inability, inability or unavailability for work is directly related to the COVID crisis. With regard to how we apply that in non-COVID related cases, we're still taking a broad look at how we want to look at that and apply those provisions moving forward.
Thanks.
Right.
I'm gonna just combine two shorter questions here, both having to do with timeline. I know you guys are getting slammed with applications, but it says, when might we hear back from with the PUA finding? Is there a general time frame they can expect to hear back?
We're missing a call discussing that right now. So
Okay.
I don't want to give you.
We want you on that other call.
We'll get Todd back up, but I can't give you 100% on that.
Would you like 69 other people to join you on that call? You can just patch it in. No, but thank you, Eric.
It's going to be soon. It's going to be soon.
But we are at 4 o'clock, so I'm glad you called. We could probably keep going. We are receiving so many questions, and they're very technical, very tough situations that people are in, but also very complex situations. Eric and John, we appreciate you during this busy time, taking time to answer these questions and to do so live. So thanks to both of you for the work that you're doing.
Sure. I had no problem. I just spied another question that we probably just didn't have time to get to. If I just may address that real quick.
Please do. Keep going. Yeah.
So the question's talking about receiving regular UI benefits and then trying to apply for PUA as well. So I just want to underscore that you are not supposed to be trying to do both. So no one, if you're trying to do both, stop. You can't get both regular unemployment benefits and PUA. That is considered fraud, and it would be punishable by fines, penalties, and up to imprisonment.
So if someone did get both, what would they do to remedy that?
Stop one immediately, and then report that to our claimant services, and we will handle dealing with that.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again, and we're gonna wrap this up. So thank you, Eric. Demi, I'm gonna, if I can, I'll just a couple sentences, and then I'm gonna throw it back to you for wrap up, if that's okay. Anyways, we'll continue to advocate. I think advocacy is something that is incredibly important during this time, particularly on the issue that we are feeling a lot of pain on as a sector, and that is getting a lower determination on UI versus PUA. So again, be on the lookout for ways that you can take action on that through the Alliance, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that. Demi, I'm gonna throw it back to you. And thank you, by the way, to all the people who are participating on Facebook as well, in addition to Zoom.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. And let me add my thanks to Eric and to John for joining us today. If we know there were a lot of questions and we weren't able to answer all of them, we keep a record of all of them, and we'll try to incorporate them into questions we send to Eric, questions that we're adding to our FAQ on PUA. And then the best suggestion we have for you is to join our Facebook group. We post daily updates in there. Any calls to action that are coming up around unemployment benefits will be in there. And then, like I mentioned at the top, we've gone through a lot of really complicated scenarios today. There will be a recording of this webinar available tomorrow. I'm going to send all registrants an email. It'll have the recording, it'll have the Facebook group. And then one last plug, I'll say, we'd love to try and improve these webinars going forward. There's a quick survey that I'll send out in the email as well, and you actually might be able to complete it right after you get off this webinar as well. But thanks again to everyone for joining. Thanks to Chris for moderating questions as well. Thanks to everyone on Facebook. Just thanks all in all. It's a really stressful time. And we hope we gave you a little tiny bit of clarity today. Have a good rest of your day.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.